Shimon Chasdi, who was the founder of many programs in NIFTY, but one of them is EIE. And here, and we're going to plant, which we'll uncover a little bit later in his memory and in his honor. We have here is Rabbi Skirbel over here. Rabbi Skirbel was the first director of NIFTY Israel back starting in 1971, who put into operation all the programs that NIFTY runs here in Israel. And we have here the son of Shimon Chasdi, Dr. Richard Chasdi, and his wife Sharon Chasdi, here to partake in this moment of remembering the Shimon who basically started all NIFTY travel, all the international programs, all the Israel programs, including EIE.
I'd like to say two things in about the 10 minutes I've been given. You know, I say, what should I speak about, guys, in about 3 minutes. But I'd like to first say about Shimon Chasdi, whom I met exactly 50 years ago in 1961, when I was first coming on as the associate director of NIFTY in America. And he is, I used to read, I don't know what's around, Reader's Digest magazine around anymore? Yeah. They used to have a section that was called The Most Unforgettable Character I've Ever Met. And Shimon certainly filled that bill for me. And to tell you a little bit about him, he was born in Ekron. Let's see, does Ekron mean anything to any of you?
Ohio.
That's Akron, Habibi, but Akron maybe, I don't know. Ekron, anyone ever hear about it? It's related closely to Ashdod, Ashkelon, and Gat. Ekron was one of the 5 Philistine cities, okay? And today, it's near the Tel, is it's a village. It was like a development town at the beginning, not far from Rehoboth. And Shimon was born there. And he grew up in that area in Tel Aviv. He didn't tell me much about what he did. Shimon was always a man of mystery. And people used to tell me, he's a spy. He works for the Mossad or something like that. And there are lots of questions I never even asked Shimon. And I knew not to. But I came across, I was doing some research in the Central Zionist Archive, and I came across his name. One of the things he did was he was smuggled into the Cyprus camps. Anyone know about the Ryu? Does anybody know what the camps in Cyprus were for? Anything about them? Who's teaching history here?
They're only in the biblical period.
Oh, okay. There's such a thing called illegal immigration, right? The British, when they had the mandate here, were not going to let the Jews in because they didn't want to get the Arabs angry. But many of these Jews, of course, were survivors from the Holocaust. They were coming to the DP camps, and they were smuggled in. Some made it all the way. Some of them got caught. Those that got caught were sent to DP camps, again, in Cyprus, because Cyprus then belonged to the British before it was independent, half invaded by Turkey now. But and Shimon was smuggled into there to help run the camp, so that the British didn't realize that he was not someone who was saved from the Holocaust, but he organized things there. There were 2 or 3 camps like that with tens of thousands of people, so he was like the mayor of that area. And later on, he was in the War of Independence, and he was a captain, and he was quite a guy. And he was in Army intelligence for the Israeli Army. And I told you, I first met him when he came to America. He went to Harvard to get a graduate degree in education and so forth. And he lived, I don't know how he got it, I never asked him, but the highest point in Brookline, there's a mansion there, about 19 rooms or something, mostly, and that was where Shimon was living. And whenever I went to Boston, I would stay there. But it was just part of his persona. And he wouldn't brag about it, he wouldn't talk about it, but he'd say, "You want to sleep by my house?" I said, "Yeah." And what I said, "This is yours?" He said, "Yeah." And that was it. So Shimon was a very fascinating person, no question about it. Now, EIE was his idea. Shimon was very much into it. He worked his whole life in student exchanges people meeting each other and so forth. And EIE was his idea. He went to my then boss, my predecessor, director of NIFTY, Sam Cook, Rabbi Sam Cook. And he said to Sam, he said, I got this idea. First he had an idea that was called an Antiquities Tour. And it was a summer program, it was 7 weeks. 3.5 weeks in Europe, so they went to the British Museum in London, and they went to the Louvre for the antiquities, and on the way back, and then they went to, I think, Rome, and then they went to Greece, and then they spent 3.5 weeks in Israel with the antiquities. And Shimon developed the program, and he ran it. But he said, we should have an exchange program. And Sam Cook said, it's a great idea, Shimon, but you know, I don't want to have any of the logistics. If you take care of all the logistics, that's fine. And Shimon said, I will, and he did. And in those days, we only, the very beginning, I'll tell you in a minute, what happened to some of the people. The first time we had it, we sent 3 people over to America, and 3 people from America to Israel. And in my second half of my little talk, I'll tell you what happened to some of those people. It's very interesting. So Shimon could run all of these programs. Now, I was thinking about him, and I was thinking all the C's about him. C's. He was a clever man, a creative man, careful and cautious, conservative, and very courageous. And I was, when I say we never lost anybody, we never did. We're one of the few movements that we didn't lose anyone. Why did we lose? No one got killed here, right? And what Shimon used to say when people would say, isn't it dangerous to send them? And Shimon would say, the most dangerous part of the whole program is the car ride from Manhattan to Kennedy Airport. And but he was always extremely cautious. And I was telling his son about how he's courageous. There was a Kanaka. What's a Kanaka? A big shot, okay? A big shot in the Union who had a friend, an Israeli that he knew, and he decided that the mitzvah corps, which was also one of Shimon's ideas here, that the mitzvah corps should do some work with his Israeli friend who was building an outdoor museum, which exists today. It's called the Ot Kedumim. And he said, they're building it now, and why can't the nifty kids come over here in the summer and help clearing and doing the work that has to be done? And Shimon thought, that's a good idea. So Shimon worked out with Ben Shemin Youth Village, a program where the kids would sleep at Ben Shemin Youth Village, but they would work every day at this new area that was being built. The first day they were out there working, the kids started picking up things and said, what is this? And it was a cannon shell. And so Shimon looks and says, what's going on here? And the guy said, oh, it's nothing, it's nothing. He said, what do you mean it's nothing? He said, well, this used to be an IDF, Israeli Defense Force, place where they would train, where they would shoot cannons, but there's nothing wrong. And Shimon said, there may be something that may not. He said, but none of my kids are going to stay here now. He said, he went back to Ben Shemin and said, at Ben Shemin, they're going to stay there day and night. We're going to the mitzvah, you're going to work in Ben Shemin with the Ben Shemin kids. And he came under tremendous pressure from this big shot. And he said, you know, I can have your job. And Shimon said, you can do what you want, but I'm responsible for these kids, and they're not going to work there. And they didn't. But that was typical of Shimon in a very quiet way, but very strong. So he always used to tell, I think that the one little thing, his favorite statement to me was always, let's think about this out loud. And he was really, and I wanted to tell you one clever thing that he did, because this is, he was an amazing person. I was with the office in New York, and Shimon would be there 2 or 3 days a week. I never asked him where he stayed. I just didn't have to ask anything. But once I said, Shimon, how does it work that you have to fly down from Boston to New York and back at least once a week? How do you finance it? He said, very easy. In those days things were different. He was in charge of getting all the tickets through El Al for all the summer programs. And in those days, the price for a ticket from Boston to Tel Aviv was the same as the price for a ticket from New York to Tel Aviv. We always started the programs in New York. But Shimon would buy all the tickets from Boston to Tel Aviv to Boston, and therefore he had all of these Boston to New York back. He got 50 to 100 of them. He says, oh, that's fine. But that's what he used to think of, a wonderful guy. Anyway, I want to tell you that Shimon was a magnificent person. He lived to be 85 years old, and we were all blessed that he was here. Now I want to take the second part, and I I want to tell you something about the EIE that he founded, okay? And then I'll be done. First of all, as you know, we have many arcades here. Arcades, what does arcade mean? Rabbi's kid, right? And we have lots of EIEs who are the children of EIEs. And we have lots of rabbis, Jewish leaders. The EIE is a hard house for developing lots of Jewish leaders. Lots of people, lots of EIE people are living in Israel today, living on our kibbutzim, etc. Okay, I want to tell you. Let me tell you first about the first trio. I told you that we sent 3 each way. Let me tell you about the first Israelis we sent over. First there was Ruthie Chalfon. Ruthie Chalfon became, for the rest of her life, was a senior teacher at the Leo Beck School in Haifa. Okay. Rabbi Zev Harari. Rabbi Zev Harari was an EIE counselor at the Leo Beck